Have you ever noticed how the people in charge always have a world-ending crisis on the horizon, and how the solution always gives them more power and you get less? It's a neat trick. For generations we've been told to be afraid. Be very afraid. The apocalypse is always just around the corner. Only our expert leaders can save us. Selfless bureaucrats at places like the United Nations. They've been running this play for a long time. It's a script they know well. The specific threat changes, new ice age, global flood, but the message never does. Give us control, trust us implicitly, don't you dare ask questions. Climate change, as told by the establishment, is presented as settled science, a modern gospel. But is it? Pull back the curtain and the history looks different. Wild-eyed forecasts, dramatic pronouncements, deadlines that come and go. This isn't about saving the planet, this is about power. A small cadre can use fear to control economies, crush dissent, and dictate how you live, all while calling it progress. They count on you not remembering. The churn erases the past. The same institutions now screaming fire were, not long ago, screaming freeze. What if the narrative rests on shifting goalposts and convenient amnesia? What if the real crisis is the credibility of those telling us to be afraid? Tonight, we'll do the one thing they tell you not to do, look at the receipts. We'll examine what they said, their words, their official reports, against what actually happened. This isn't about denying the climate changes. Of course it does. It's about whether those who claim certainty actually have it, and what their real agenda is. When every solution requires your submission, it's time to start asking hard questions. To the archives. Let's journey back in time before carbon taxes and electric car mandates to the 1920s and 30s. The world was different, but the playbook of fear was already being written. The Great Climate Panic wasn't heat, it was cold. Prominent scientists, amplified by media, cited data and warned of a cooling era. These weren't fringe ideas, they were front-page news. The science is clear, they said, extrapolating short trends into catastrophe. Then the funny thing about prophecies, the ice age didn't arrive, headlines disappeared. Experts moved on, no apologies, no reckoning. The episode was memory hold, but its lesson is vital. Consensus can be temporary, flawed, and wrong. Projecting short-term wiggles into long-term certainties is a fool's errand. The very institutions that now demand absolute faith on warming once amplified cooling fears. They expect you to forget. They bet you won't connect the dots. But the record remains for anyone willing to look. As one scare faded, another rose, with perfect certainty intact, from ice to fire. Next, the year the world was supposed to end. Again. Fast forward to the 1980s. The Ice Age scare had been erased. A new crisis took center stage. The narrative flipped 180, freezing to burning, while certainty stayed the same. In 1982, UN Environmental Chief Mustafa Tolba warned of an environmental catastrophe, devastation as complete as a nuclear holocaust, by the year 2000. Reports in 1983 amplified the doom with catastrophic rises and biblical disasters. Specificity made it feel real, a ticking clock to midnight. Then the year 2000 came and went. Did we suffer devastation as complete as a nuclear holocaust? Were nations wiped off the map? Of course not. The world, by and large, was fine, and thriving. In 1988, a UN official warned the Maldives could be obliterated within 30 years, by 2018. Today they're still here, with new airports, resorts, and more people than ever, often on reclaimed land. They set deadlines, nothing happens, the goalposts move. Remember the tipping points of 2010, 2015, 2020? The catastrophe is always another decade away, a rigged game. If an analyst called a 90% crash that never came, you'd stop listening. Why do failed climate prophecies get a pass? Failures buried, predictions forgotten, authority renewed with louder forecasts. It's an amazing spectacle, and a deeply dishonest one. So what's this really about? Power, profit, and who pays? If the predictions fail, why the relentless push? Follow the logic. Goal: drastically reduce emissions, means restrict the cheapest, most reliable energy, oil, coal, natural gas. Energy is life. It builds factories, runs hospitals, lights schools, irrigates farms. Telling the developing world to rely on intermittent, expensive power is pulling up the ladder behind you. Branded climate justice and sustainable development. In practice, managed poverty. They aren't liberating the poor, they're placing them in climate chains. Who benefits from the crusade? Not the polar bears. The climate bureaucracy and its satellites thrive on a crisis that can't end. Taxpayers to governments to subsidies to green firms, a river of mandates, credits, and cash. Wall Street, multinationals, and connected entrepreneurs profit handsomely. For politicians, it justifies control. Cars, appliances, heat, taxes, regulations, agencies. Who pays? You. In higher energy bills, higher taxes, a lower standard of living. This isn't grassroots, it's a top-down power grab, one of the largest wealth transfers in history. Into this consensus stepped a dissenter, and he asked the forbidden questions. Into the cozy consensus stepped Donald Trump, and he said the emperor has no clothes. Branded a science denier, the media melted down, but set hysteria aside. What did he actually say and do? He withdrew from Paris, calling it a bad deal, costly to Americans while China could increase emissions for years. When he called it a hoax, he meant the political and economic agenda riding on climate, not the existence of weather. He asked, "Is this deal good for our country? Who benefits? Are we being scammed?" Leaving Paris was framed not as vandalism, but as national sovereignty. The time for blind faith is over. Real science invites skepticism and debate. If CO2 drives catastrophe, why haven't temperatures tracked models for decades? Why were past eras warmer with higher CO2 long before SUVs? Why cripple our economies while China adds coal, offsetting any theoretical gains? Real environmentalism is clean air, clean water, and responsible stewardship. Tangible problems with tangible solutions. Innovate cleaner energy, fight soot, smog, waste, without global bureaucracies running your life. The current approach has delivered fear, economic pain, and enrichment for a few. Choose realism over alarmism, innovation over restriction, national interest over globalist fantasy. Reject the false choice, we can have prosperity and a clean environment. Ultimately, this is about control. Free citizens shaping destiny or unelected bureaucrats ruling by fear. We owe ourselves and our children to stop being afraid and start demanding the truth.